Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are. And welcome to our new series under the banner of exploring self-mastery. For the last several months, we've been exploring coaching mastery. And this is what we're talking about in this series. Self-mastery is at the very core of our coaching model at Coach for Life. And so welcome. My name is Peter J. Redding. I am a master coach trainer, and have been on the path of self-mastery and discovering and rediscovering and articulating the sense of what self-mastery is all about for the last 35 years. And so what I share with you is a journey of proprietary processes, proprietary ways of looking and acting and getting to what self-mastery is all about. And if you are asking yourself now, who am I? Why am I here? How does my life make a difference? Any of those kinds of questions, and you are exactly in the right place. And so I encourage you to be with us on every Tuesday, 10 a.m. USA Eastern, at least for the next 7 weeks, which we're going to be going a deep dive into sharing the processes that I've developed, the insights that I've had in terms of working with thousands of people and finding their core self, their true self, their authentic self. And also, frankly, to unlearn or release the parts of self that have been adopted, have been adapted, have been conditioned, have been programmed. And I think for myself, that I operated on that 100%, basically for the first 37 years of my life. Yeah. So welcome. Let me get oriented here to get a new screen up for us. Get myself centered. And I think we're good. All right. There is just one life for each of us, our own. Now, as obvious as that may sound, this is by Euripides that said this 2,500 years ago. All right. This has not changed. Who am I? What's my life? Am I living my own life or not? Or to what degree? So what I say is to know, live, celebrate who you were created to be. Now, this is as opposed to programmed to be, told to be, expected to be, and so on. So we're going to take a dive into this whole question of what is self-mastery, and more particularly, what is core self-mastery? Because it's different. There's lots of people that say, yep, I know who I am. And they don't. It's almost, and the example of what I share here is the operating system of a computer. All right. So now I can tell you guaranteed that any of you that are still working on the original operating system for your computer, when it came out in what, 1985 or something, when the first quote portable computers came out that were 26 pounds, you could not be on this live stream right now. It's impossible, because the operating system of that computer, the old K-Pro, for those of you that are around, have been around that long, okay, even before the Apple I, had an operating system that was incredibly limited based on today's operating systems, computer operating systems. Think about that. And now think about my personal operating system. If you want to do an acronym, the POS, my personal operating system. And if I'm working on my personal operating system that was put into place for me personally in the 1950s, yes, 1950s, by my parents, by my teachers, by my culture, by my country, by my relatives, by my neighbors, by social media we didn't have, but television programming, I could not be doing the life that I'm doing right now. I couldn't be being the person that I am right now with that old, antiquated, mostly unconscious operating system. So let's take a look further deeper down here. One of the famous quotes that I remember getting from Shakespeare is "Know thyself." And so I said, super, how do I do that? I'm happy. I'll be happy to do that. And more directly or deeper than that is what self? So what I say to that is, whose self am I meant to know? What self am I meant to know? How many selves am I unconsciously operating from yet today at my age, whatever age you are? So here's kind of a short list. There's probably 1,000 of them that I personally have, my selves that have been put upon me, that I've adopted, that are, who knows how many hundreds that are still unconscious. But let's take a look at this. Well, let me go through the sequence here first. We're going to do 7 separate episodes on CoreSELF, CoreSELFtech, and all the processes that you see here will be added to the CoreSELFie.com website. So I encourage you to look at that on a weekly basis, at least for the next 7 weeks, if not after that. I encourage you to support, and everybody that you know, that you care about, that you love, that you want to have a more congruent, fulfilled life, I support you to encourage them to go to CoreSELFie. So today we're going to be talking about the overview, the introduction to all of this. Episode 2 next week, we'll be talking about CoreSELF discovery process. This is a process that I've developed.
When does summer begin?
I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback here. Could somebody go on mute? Okay. So next week, we'll be talking about the self-discovery process. The week after that, the self-validation process. The week after that, the self-alignment process. Am I living the life that I'm meant to be living? Or not? Or to what degree? A 30-day tracking process that I've developed that will coordinate to align with who I am created to be, and to what degree am I doing that on a day-to-day basis, and to correlate that with to what degree was I fulfilled that day, to what degree I felt really good about how I showed up wherever I showed up, whether it's for my kids, for my spouse, for my partner, for my business, for the society, for my neighbors, everything. Episode 6, we'll go through process number 5, is CoreSELF Mastery Assessment. This is self-assessment. It's not an assessment that I do for you. You do it, and you determine to what degree are you living your self-mastery. And the final one, process number 6, is which of these, there's 10 levels of how to know yourself that I've identified that I think you'll are in common day language, right? And so how many of those levels are still showing up in my operating system, my personal operating, my POS, my personal operating system. And it's not that all of them are bad. It's not that all of them need to be chucked, thrown out. But it's a closer look in terms of, yeah, I still have some of that old elementary school programming, conditioning in me, or I still have that that expectation from my elders or from my people that I want to impress. And that's still part of my operating system. So let's call these sub operating systems that are within this 10 levels. And is there a sub operating system that needs to be tuned up? Keep what is still serves and replace or upgrade those parts of that piece of the programming, conditioning of life. You know what? Now that I'm 37 years old, I no longer need to have that sub program in there unconsciously. So I am going to consciously upgrade it to a more affirming, a more life affirming sub operating system. Okay. So that's the journey that we're going to be on. This is my life's work. My goal is to have the first billion people be able to do all of these things, especially episode number 2, discover who they really are, who they were created to be, and start making decisions, more conscious awareness decisions from that basis, as opposed to an unconscious, again, personal operating system that they've never questioned. It's been there. That's I hear so many people say, well, yeah, that's just the way I am. No, that's the way that you have been conditioned to be. And you have 35 years of practice doing it that way or being that way, because that's what you are supposed to do. That is what you're supposed to be. That is what you're supposed to contribute to this family, to this organization, to this society, to the types of people that are like me, to my community. Again, I'm not a revolutionist in terms of throw all of that out, but I am a challenger of who are you really, really, really deep down. Yeah. Here we go. So, what is my core self mastery? It is not these things. My mostly unconscious self, my mostly unexamined self. Going back to a Socrates quote, an unexamined life is not worth living. Okay, so don't off yourself. I'm not that radical. But an unexamined self, an unexamined personal operating system, I'm going to say mostly doesn't work after the age of about 18. So when's the last time that you did a deep dive into who I am? Who am I? Why am I here? It is mostly not a programmed self by my programming through mostly unconscious, again, societal, cultural, the heritage that I come from, the socialized self. I got all kinds of programming between the ages of 1 and 7 in terms of here's how you're supposed to behave at church. Here's how you're supposed to behave at the dinner table. Here's how you're supposed to behave when we're outside the family. Here are the things that you can talk about. Here are the things that you can't talk about. You do not share these things outside of the house. All kinds of socialization that took place at early age for me. And for everybody, right? Again, not all of it bad. I still hold on to a number of those principles that I was taught at early age that has served me incredibly well. And my parents were well-meaning, wanted the best for me. Okay. And yet if I don't go back and take a look at some of those things, maybe 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 you deserve an upgrade. My mostly groomed self, and I'm not talking about my hair or, you know, taking showers. I'm talking about how I was groomed to be. How do I show up in polite society? How do I show up in a classroom? How do I show up as a student, and so on? My mostly persona self, that mask that I wear. And I had several of those. I probably still do. I try not to anymore. I try to be as authentic and as real as I can possibly be, consciously and unconsciously. And at 37, I had one for work. I had one for my primary relationship. I had one for my siblings. I had one for being a son. I had one for society, and so on and so forth. Even just talking about it now, it's exhausting. It's like, again, I go back to the computer. I don't know why that's such a great metaphor for me this morning, but if I'm trying to run all these subsystems and I'm trying to maintain these personas and have a consciousness of, okay, so now I'm in a different environment, so I need to kind of whoop, you know, bring up that persona, that bravado, that whatever is included in that persona. It's exhausting. I can tell you from my own experience, being on the other side of this now and being authentic, regardless of where I am, whether I'm in front of the camera right now or live with you, or I'm teaching a class, or I'm doing life with my beautiful relationship here at home, or I'm talking to a sibling. I show up as Peter. I show up as the authentic Peter that my creator made me to be, as best as I humanly can. My mostly normalized self. And this one I almost cry over, because how can you be your unique, awesome, beautiful, fantastic, brilliant self if you're trying to fit in to what society wants from you and what society does not want from you, because they are not comfortable with you in your totality? The world needs you, the original you. And I believe that's still inside of every human being. And it's just waiting to be expressed in a life-affirming manner for both you and those that you're here to contribute to. Yeah. All right. So I'm getting depressed. Let's go looking at all this stuff. It's like, let's get on with it. So when somebody says, you know, who are you? You know, be yourself, be thyself, as Shakespeare would have you be. Although I think he had in mind in his writing, thyself has sort of a spiritual connotation, at least it does for me. So which of these selves do you want me to express who I am? My male self, and a lot of these are for me. My male self, my American self, my Caucasian self, you can see that. My executive self, my entrepreneur self, my cultural heritage self, my you know, I come from Luxembourgian, German, and Irish backgrounds, right? My grandparents. My baby boomer self, when I was born as a baby in a baby boomer generation, my coach self, my educated self, my U.S. Marine Corps self, my economic, where I am economically, my economic means self, my elder self, my religious self, and so on and so forth. And there's, again, probably another 100 or 200 that I could put on the list. Again, exhausting. If you're on the Zoom with me right now, or if you're in the Facebook, put in the chat box or the question section. What's the top 1 or 2 selves that you are conscious of? My career self, my executive self, my parent, my mom self. What are some of the roles that you're playing right now? And that you know that there's a whole bunch of things attached to that in terms of how you're supposed to be a good blank, a good mom, a good entrepreneur, a good global citizen, a good whatever. Type those into the chat box. I'll read off some of them as I see them coming up through here. Take a moment to take a breath, take a sip of water, rehydrate. So let me see if I can see some of these. Okay, I'm seeing a whole bunch of them here. These are fantastic. Keep them up. Yeah, if you got a second one, throw that in there too. Okay, my mom self and my career self. Yeah, exactly. Carrie's got that. My spiritual identity. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of things that can be attached to religiosity, spiritual traditions. Here's what we eat. Here's what we don't eat. Here's how we honor our God or our gods. Here's how we celebrate them. Here's how we honor them. This is okay. This is not okay, and so on and so forth. Again, I'm passing no judgment here at all. I think that most religions at their core are life affirming. Yeah. And are hugely honoring of that sense of creator, God, spirit, source, however you may name that or call that or honor that. Yeah. And I'm going to also say that there's, at least for me, I'll claim this for myself, I'll speak in an I statement here, that there are a lot of things in that religiosity, that dogma, that doesn't work for me. And so again, that's part of the, is that still operating at an unconscious level for all of you, each of you, or not? And hold on to those parts that are just so precious and beautiful and pure. And for those things that people that don't believe what I believe are not going to go to hell. Okay, they're just not. Thank you very much. Oh dear. Okay, so what else do we got here? Sibling, yeah, the order of birth. Huge one. I'm the firstborn, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that was put on me as, you're the example, Peter. How many times did I hear that between the ages of probably 2 when my first sibling came along to, about 10 years later when my last sibling was born, and I was the example, be the example. And there's a whole bunch of things that there's books that are written about birth order and, the placater, the negotiator, the pioneer, the this, that, and the other things. So there's a lot of stuff that's attached to that one. That and in and of itself could be a lifelong journey of discovery. My parents' self, huge responsibilities, and, from mom and dad, from grandma and grandpa, from great grandma and great grandpa, and all the things that are passed down through the heretical generations of, now it lands on me as a parent. And now I've got also a partner over here that's got his, her, or their ideas of what parenting is all about. Again, there's another whole lifetime of study. Spouse, capable parent. Thank you. Yes. Homeowner. Yeah. Another whole thing around that. Here's how you're supposed to maintain your house. Mine was, you have to cut the grass every week. You have to. And You know, if there's a neighbor that's not cutting their grass well, then yeah, there's judgment on, you know, they don't care. You know, they weren't properly raised. Whew. My coach self, my culture self, mom identity, professional work identity. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My spouse self, my entrepreneur self, can identify with that. Thank you. My good neighbor. Yeah. What is a good neighbor all about? I mean, we could have a whole session on that. And each of us got different programming as to, you know, do you deliver soup when somebody is sick? Do you know that they're sick even? Do you have conversations with them? Do you care for their animals when they're gone? I mean, just on and on and on about a whole. Thanks you, Peter. I am now being my own authentic self. I slip into role sometimes. Yeah. That's my goal for me, is to be more of my core self, my authentic self. And some things that society would say, oh, we're not sure that that's so proper. You hear the word, the judgment coming through, the proper way of being blank, being a neighbor, being a trainer, being a personality in the world of coaching that a lot of people know me. Thank you very much. There's a great book title. I never read the book, but I love the book title. Let's see, what was it? What you think about me is none of my business, or what you say about me is none of my business. I love that. And then that's kind of the test of, am I irked, rankled? Do I have a knee-jerk reaction to a judgment about who I am being or what I'm doing from the outside world, if you will, outside of me, or not? Again, I'm not perfect. I am impacted by other people's judgments of me. I'm not immune to that. I'm immune to a whole bunch of it, by the way, but not all of it. And my aspiration is to get better and better at, I hear what you think, and that's for you to work out, as opposed to, wait a minute, I better change. I better change to be more compatible with what they want from me. Yeah, that's a lifelong journey. And from my experience, you know, the upside of all of this is that I probably have shed, I'm going to say right now, 85% of what others think about me as being important. That's pretty good. Because I came from 2%, not worrying about whatever other people are talking about me or thinking about me or want from me. At the age of 37, I was clueless as to who I was, clueless, because I was trying to be all of the things that you see on the chart here of being a good blank, being a good male, being a good American, being a good Caucasian, being a good executive, and so on and so forth. All right, what else we got here? Caring friend. Yes, another good one. Thank you for that one. That's from Tanya. All the roles that I play, I honor to have, but people's expectation on how I should play that role limits my happiness in being in that role. That's genius. Yeah, Tanya, I'm going to read that again. All the roles I play, I honor. All the roles I play, I'm honored to have the people's expectations on how I should play that role. Oh, okay, got it. So to the degree that I'm honoring everybody else's expectations, I am limiting my happiness in being in that role in the first place. Whew, there's an insightful gem for the day. Yeah, frame that one. Post that one to the world. And it's costly in terms of energy. It's costly in terms of aging. If I am so worried about everybody else and I have to to dance to their beat, their drums, their music, their expectations. It is freaking exhausting. And there's very little dividends that come out of it for me. If I reflect back at 37, I was exhausted, absolutely categorically exhausted. Yeah, spent because I wasn't being me, being true to myself. All right, what else have we got? From Facebook, it's coming in, my son's self, my coach self, my friend self, my self. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That comes in from British on the from live on Facebook right now. So that's fabulous. From Charles, my mentor self, my community self, my lifelong learner self. Again, all things that have an impact on it, potentially taking away from that core self. And I'm here. Let me give you some good news along the way here, by the way. That it is possible to align your core self, your original self, the creator's self that is inside of you, and it's still inside of you, by the way, and connect it to all of these different roles as a parent, as a sibling, as an entrepreneur, as a mom, as a coach, as a whatever. It takes consciousness. And it takes courage. This is a courageous journey to be yourself. There's a great quote from Whoopi Goldberg, American comedian, who I dearly love. Never met the woman, but I just love who she is, because she's about as authentic as they come, and she just exudes that, and you're attracted to the person that is authentic, because it is very attractive. But I saw her quoted in a newspaper one time. She said, the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life is to be yourself. The hardest thing you'll ever do in life is to be yourself. And I believe that. This is a courageous journey, but it is so worthwhile. I'll vouch for that as well. Yeah. The sharing by others and the need to please, there's a go, need to please. Yeah, I understand that one. It's like an ex-codependent, and compare can really ruin our love of showing up in these roles where it's not the core self. Yeah, where it's not the CoreSELFtech me. Yep. Just remembering my rebel in capital letters that Charles is talking about here, in the early years. Yeah, love it. Okay, so let's move on from this sense of assumed self, pleasing self, have to be self. Oops, let me come back to this slide. So here's some of my beliefs, and you can join me in these beliefs. You can ponder these, you can journal about them, you can disagree, up to you. But here's my belief, and it's a very life-affirming belief, that every human being is a unique creation. Okay. I love the t-shirt, and I realized in some research I've done recently, Margaret Mead had come up with something very similar to this, but it says, I am absolutely categorically 100% unique. And then a little text underneath, just like everybody else, which is the paradox. So yeah, the 7.5 billion people, the scientists will tell us that our DNA is like 99.8% exactly the same, right? They go same chromosomes and same cells and same flora and all that stuff that's in our bodies, right? And yet, as Dr. Seuss says, you are you, and you are youer than anybody else in the world. Dr. Seuss. And that unique creation exists with you today, and it will always exist within you forever. So that's number one belief. Number two belief is every human being has the right to know who they were created to be. They have the right to know. The sad part, and again, I'm speaking from my experience, so I'll put it in my statement. I believe that 99% or more of the world's population does not understand who they were created to be, their core self. Because by the time they are of a age of consciousness or questioning, there's been so many things that have been put into them. For me, again, my parents told me until I was probably about 30, Peter, I know better than you because I'm older than you. I've been through this. I had no reason to not believe that, especially at 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old, 15 years old, and so on. Now, at some point in time in most people's life, they say, wait a minute, I'm my own person. Thank you very much for your great advice, Dad. I'm going to do it my way. And there's a rebellion, pushback, or I'm going to be something 100% different than my parents. And again, you're still being conditioned to react to something that has been put into place by somebody else because you're reacting to what somebody else has put into something else for you, as opposed to your creator. So every human being has a right to know who they were created to be. Number 3, every human being is alive to contribute something unique or uniquely contribute to someone unique. Some people's world is their child, and that's the one person that they are here to support, contribute to, love, bolster up, have a shoulder to cry on. That may be that entire person's contribution to the world, to bring that child up as a magnificent, awesome, beautiful human being. And for other people, it might be for the whole world. It might be contributing in a manner that changes literally the world's landscape. The last point I make here is that every human being's core self, again, that original self that was created by their creator, is within them for their entire lifetime. It doesn't go away. And therefore can be accessed or re-accessed at any time. So here's the good news. Regardless of how many layers of conditioning, other programming, other people's, I've adopted or adapted to other people's desires for Peter Redding, deep down inside of me resides that core self, original self. And my job is to be able to re-access it, find it, search for it, revere it, nurture it, grow it, practice with it. And that's a journey that I invite you on. I've worked with people, most of the people I've worked with, and there's probably been one-on-one people that I've worked on over the last 25 years, is probably, I'm going to say 5,000, maybe 6,000 one-on-one conversations I've had, coaching sessions I've had, training sessions that I've had, workshops that I've done. And they in turn have gone out and worked with hundreds of thousands of people with the technology that I'm going to support you in over the course of the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, including today, to access that original self and to bring it alive. And it's been spectacular, truly spectacular. All right. So I believe that for me, I believe that for you. That's why I bring this out to the world. I know that when people are ready to know who they really, really, really are and courageous enough to claim that, change or it does. And so, like I started saying, in terms of the 4, 5, 6,000 people, 10,000, I've lost track. They've been mostly the ages of, I'm going to say 20 to 70, 20 to 70. So mostly an adult population. What my graduates have shared with me is when they take this back and work with their teenage children or teenage communities that they are involved in, it works as powerfully for them as well. In fact, and faster is from all the reports because they have less baggage, they have less layers, they have less conditioning at 15 than someone that's 35. And there has not been one case where someone wanted to really understand who they were at their core that couldn't do that. And that happens quick. That happens within a couple of days or a couple of hours. That's the good news. That's a really, really good news. Charles got another contribution here. How about the quote like this? The most courageous and important task in life is to know, celebrate, and live your core self. You're beautiful. Core self. You were created to be, by Peter J. Redding. Yeah, I love that quote. I am particularly fond of that quote, Charles. So thank you for bringing that to the class. All right. How are we doing here? Oh, we're doing spectacularly good. So here's what I've determined and learned and guided through me by, I believe, my spirit, is that core self-mastery is knowing, living, and celebrating who you were created to be. From that beautiful, famous quote that Charles just brought to us, right? The most courageous, important task in life is to know, celebrate, and live your core self that you were created to be, by Peter J. Redding. Yeah. So knowing it is, I believe, about maybe 20 to 30% of the process. I mean, I knew that I should lose weight for my health back 10 years ago, but I never did anything about it because I like chocolate cake. Just never seen, I don't never shedded the pounds. I don't know why. Well, I do know now why. All right. It's called carbohydrates. Anyhow, knowing is the first step. And it's a courageous step to even be open to learning, knowing, reconnecting. The second step is living it, putting it into practice, aligning, my decisions, my actions, my goals, my aspirations, my challenges. How do I put who I am and connect it to, align with my day-to-day life? And finally, the third one is, because I'm human, I forget. Yeah. I've been doing this for a long time, and yes, Peter Redding forgets. Geez, why don't we pull out the core values and a life purpose and the natural gifts and talents that I know about myself, my core, and how do these apply to this challenge that I'm working for, with my goal of celebrating it, the idea. In this instance, I actually was living myself, my core self. How cool is that? I was actually being who I was created to be in this scenario, or through this challenging time, or with this person, and celebrate that. And that then reinforces it into my brain and says, oh, I feel really, really, really great about who I was when I was blank, when I was doing or being this. And it was not by accident. It was design, because I showed up my authentic core selfness, if you will. Now, let's go one step deeper. Knowing what? Going back to Shakespeare, know thyself. Yeah, but what does that mean? How do you do, what's included in self? Well, here's what came through for me, and this came through for me about like 25 years ago when we were creating our coach training model of the fulfillment coaching model, is core values, life purpose, And finally, natural gifts and talents. This is not talking about the values that I was told to abide by, but rather the core values that were put there by my creator. Everybody is living by values. My question is, whose values are you living by? Are you living by your cultural values? And again, not all bad. You know, don't throw them all out. Thank you very much. A lot of them are spectacularly brilliant, and continue that. But are they your core, your unique core values, or not? Or to what degree? Everybody's living by a purpose. I am working so that I can earn money to support my family. That's a purpose. That's a beautiful purpose. I love that purpose. But it may not be the totality of your life purpose. And the life purpose will apply to every single role that you are ever in, and at every stage of life that you live through, your life purpose. And the third one is, and I make a special note here, of natural, okay, or God-given, if you will, if that language fits for you, gifts and talents. There are things that I have become competent in, but they're not natural for me. I struggle to learn them when I'm doing them, even though I'm good at it. Somebody else would say, wow, that's really great work, Peter, that knows that field. But it brings no joy. There's no deep down personal satisfaction in the act of doing that particular talent, doing that particular gift. And I find people that are at the ages of 35 to 40 in particular that have gotten really good at being a blank, being an executive, entrepreneur, doctor, lawyer, dentist, author, whatever. And so many of them say, and I hate my work. I hate my job. I hate my career, but I'm locked into it now. I've got golden handcuffs around me because I have to earn this level of income. And it brings tears to my eyes. And I was one of them. I know the angst that I was going through. And it was sucking the passion out of my body. So the natural ones are the ones that I'm good at mathematics. My only claim to fame in academics is that I got 100 in my geometry class in high school. In fact, teacher gave us bonus points because a lot of people in the class needed bonus points to pass. So I'd get those as well. So I would get my exam back, or my test, and I would have 105, 110 on it. And so I turned to the guy next to me when he didn't have a bonus point that week, and I only got 100. And I said, damn, my average just went down. Okay, my only claim to fame for academics. But that was a natural. I see it in my head. It just makes total sense to me, right? Everybody has these. The question here is, have they been developed? Have they been honored? And again, programming and conditioning early on in life says, oh, no, you're not going to do your art. You're going to work on your science. You're going to work on your mathematics. You're going to work on your whatever. But everybody knows that artists starve. So we're not going to promote your artistic tendencies, or your musicality tendencies, or your whatever tendencies. And that, again, is a loss. So the question then becomes, how do you get to know these things? And we're going to get a deep dive into actually being able to do this next week. You do not want to miss next week's session. Session number 2 is the core self-discovery process. It's our first process that we'll be presenting out of the 6. And it may be the most important one, because I can't be myself, even if I want to be myself, and I don't have a true north, a compass point, a reality check. And if I'm trying to be myself and I have a sense of false self, untrue self, something other than my original self that I am gravitating towards, then when I get there, it's not going to be fulfilling. It won't. It can't. I believe, here's another Peter Redding quote, is the only way to reach personal, deep, lasting fulfillment as a human being The only way for me to get there is to be myself, to honor my core values, life purpose, natural gifts and talents. If I'm devoid of portions of those or all of those, then I can be successful. And I was earning big bucks at 37 years old. I had skipped promotion levels, 2 of them, I think, by that stage in my career. People love me. I did a great job. I was a workaholic, which gets really highly rewarded in our society. It still does. But I was an empty vessel. If you want to put it in terms of self-worth, I was bankrupt at 37. Yeah. Because I didn't know who I was. I was trying to be what everybody else wanted me to be. I was contributing what everybody else wanted me to contribute. I could cue into that. I had a sixth sense for what people wanted from me, and I delivered on it almost always. And I didn't know who I was. So I went through major midlife crisis at 37. Charles asking a question here. Do you suggest that we go to CoreSELFtech.com and complete the processes now or wait? I encourage you to wait. I'd rather have you wait. And I'm going to be updating and upgrading those probably this week anyhow. So yeah, thank you for that question, Charles. I appreciate that. Yeah, wait until I do an update on the first process before you go through that. The one that's been up there has been up there probably a year and a half. It's one that I've used for the last 8 years, and I've got some fine tuning to it that will make it easier and more understandable. And we'll go through that together next week. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Message from Facebook from Suryo Singh Loy in terms of you are successful. You are creating an impact on young coaches now. Yeah, thank you for that. And I fully receive that. And I know that to be true. And again, this is not being hubris, but I'm doing the work that I'm here to do. I'm contributing what I'm here to contribute. There's no question in my mind about that. And so this is the core of all of that. All right. So each core self element, what does it represent? I'll tell you what it represents. That the core values is I'll put it in my most authentic way of being, of showing up. Okay. That's my core values, is the road to my beingness. Am I being joyful? Am I being happy? There's a sense of freedom about my beingness. Is there a sense of creativity? Those are some of my core values, right? Life purpose is my highest form of contributing. And again, you're seeing it here in front of you right now. This is my way of contributing to my world, to have it be a better world. And it comes from my core self. It's like, I didn't think one day, let's say, okay, so what can I do to impact the world? Geez, maybe I'll do this. It's not the way it happened. It was accessing what was already there and honoring that to the best of my human ability. The third one, in terms of NG&T, natural gifts and talents, or God-given gifts and talents, it's my way of doing. So my way of doing here is connecting the dots. That's one of my natural gifts and talents. My way of communicating in a manner that is taking complex, deep issues and presenting them in an understandable manner. And hopefully I've accomplished that today and for the rest of the series and the previous sessions. That's a natural gift. It's not one that I went to university and said, okay, I want to join a class that allows me to explain complex issues in a simplified manner. I don't even know if there is a course like that. Hopefully there is somewhere for somebody. But for me, it came, again, from my sense of spirit, my sense of God, my sense of the divine. And I have a knack of being able to do that. I had that in corporations when I was a leader, executive, as a sales representative, as a marketing VP, and as a sales VP, and as a manager of an engineering department, and all that. It was actually there present. I just didn't recognize it as such. And now I'm bringing it to support my life's work, my life purpose. Yeah. The second part we talked a little bit about already is actually living those things, aligning those things. Once I know them and have written them down and articulated them on a piece of paper, which we'll do next week, is actually aligning them and living them. So this is the, I think that's week 3 that we're getting into, that is the alignment process. How do I actually start aligning my life little by little? It's not overnight. You don't have to leave your day job right now, or ever for that matter, and still be able to be true to yourself. And the third component is celebrating those things. Notice when you are ecstatically joyous. And in that moment, if you can remember, go back to the sheet that we're going to articulate next week and look at it and go, oh, wow, I was being this, and I was being this, and I was being this, and I was honoring my life purpose in a fashion, right? And part of what I was doing. And the tools and the talents and the skills that I am naturally good at were present. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. There's a correlation here. I am more effective. Here's the paradox of this whole thing from an executive standpoint, by the way. When I'm being myself, I'm actually being able to produce more, execute more, make more change, develop more clients, all of that, anything that's involved with being an executive, or other parts of your life in terms of the roles that you play. You're a better parent, you're a better sibling, you're a better citizen of the world, you're more tolerant, and on and on and on. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I want you to think about, we're going to be closing here in a minute or two, but what are the potential benefits to really know your own original core self, values, purpose, gifts? What are some of the potential benefits of that for you? Yeah. So I'm going to leave you on that note. You can journal about that one. I can tell you from my own experiences briefly a couple things. I have so much more energy now to do my work as opposed to try to do everybody else's work. I have so much more energy now because I'm not worried about having to placate, please other people. There are damn few things in life that get me rattled. Very, very, very few. Again, I'm human, so there's still some. The guy that's driving 15 miles an hour in a 70-mile-an-hour zone in the speed lane, that's still one that anybody that's known me for any length of time, I still have that one. All right. Okay. Next week. Dun, 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 dun. Core self-discovery process number 1 has the potential of changing your life. It is that powerful. It is that powerful. Please come next week with an open mind, and I'll take you through this process myself, and then we'll do a Q&A as part of that. But this will be live. This will be taking you through a process that dates back to 1996, when we developed a much, much longer process, which we still teach in our coach training organization, coachforlife.com, if you want to look at that. But this is a self-administered version. This is a 10, 15-minute version that you can do on your own that is doesn't go as deep. It can't go as deep as the 2-hour process that we teach in our training, our coach training, which our coaches use in there with their clients. But this has been remarkably powerful, and so even surprising to me. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about the history of this one, but I'll actually take you through it next week, step by step. And then you can ask questions about it live. All right. So with that, I will sign off. Be your core self as you best can this week. I wish you a great life, a great day. Stay safe. God bless. Namaste.